Welcome to our final day, day 12 of our Easter stitch along. I've got 4 strands of 924 on my needle already, and we are going to work on our final text, He is risen. So we're going to be doing a back split stitch for this, which is something we've sort of already done with our cave, our tomb, sorry, whatever you want to call it, and then our sun, but with letters it's just slightly different. So let's get stitching. All right, so unlike yesterday's stitching with the back stitch, you're not really creating a pattern here with the back split stitch. What you're gonna do, still when possible, though it's not quite as important, especially with cursive, which is what I tend to use a back split for, start at the bottom, go forward a little more than 1 stitch length, go for maybe a 1.5 stitches. So that's about here. I went just a little below the line that crosses over on the H. And then you're going to come up 1/2 stitch length. And then you're going to split it right down the middle of this previous stitch. So we're using 4 strands, so you're aiming for getting perfectly in the middle of 2 and 2, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so I'm going to come up to the top here. Again, aim for the middle of that previous stitch and go right down and split it. Okay, now in the case of lines that cross over, I want to do this other line first before I cross over. That way the H is, or the horizontal line is sitting on top of the H. So now I'm going to work from the top because working from the bottom doesn't make sense here. I'm going to go about 1.5 stitches down. Let me get a little bit closer for you. About 1/2 to 1 stitch forward and split right down the middle. Now, before I go too far, okay, before I finish the letter H, I'm going to go ahead and do the crossover. So I'm going to go back over to this side, just as we've been doing, go about 1.5 stitches length forward. That's about right all the way up to that very first vertical line. I'm going to come on the other side of the vertical line, cross over it, and split down the middle of my previous stitch. Hoping this isn't too hard to see with the blue in the video. I can never tell looking through my phone what is going to be easier to see on once I've edited and everything. So hopefully you're seeing all this just fine. Okay, now I didn't trace it very well, but there's just a little bit extra on that after that second vertical line. And again, this is when it's a good time to reference your stitch guide so you can kind of see visually what it should look like in case you traced incorrectly for any reason. Okay, so now I can go back down onto this H and finish stitching here. And you do want to stitch sort of in the order of if you were writing the letter, as far as going in the direction. Which is why we cross our H at the end. Now when we're going around a corner, your stitch is going to get quite a bit smaller. And then it can get a little bit bigger as you get back onto a straight line. Okay, now at this point with the H, I've come all the right way onto, sorry, hold on. This looks like it got a little wonky. There we go. Okay, so I've gone all the way onto that E line, but now I'm gonna pick up and start here at the bottom portion of the E, of the, yeah, you see where I'm going. You see where I'm going. And we're gonna go around so that we can come down that direction. E is gonna be a little tricky to stitch because the inside circle can just get a little tight. So if you feel like you need to stitch kind of on the outside of your line, like instead of going directly down the middle, you're going on the outside just a little bit, then feel free to do that. Just not so much where you're seeing all of the pin marks. You still want them to be covered up so that when we remove our pin marks, it's not going to leave any ghost marks. And you can even use, well, here, let me do one more stitch and then it'll be better to show you. Okay, you can use the dull side of your needle to help open up that hole again, because sometimes the floss gets pushed in. You just have to open it a little bit. I'm just kind of pushing the floss around. Again, it goes around a little bit of a corner, so it's going to get a little bit tighter. Okay, so there is our he, our second he. Now we're going to move over to is. I'm going to fast forward through the rest, but real quickly, I'm just going to show you when you do the dots for the eyes. You could do a French knot if you want. It might be a little thick with the 4 strands. Instead, you could, okay, back up. This is where I'm starting to stumble over my words. You could do a French knot. I think it might be a little big. Or what you could do is a back stitch, just a very, very, very tiny back stitch. So just coming up and then going down almost directly in the same hole, but not, because then your stitch will come out. So then that way you have a nice little tiny dot. Okay, so I'm going to speed up through the rest of this video and then I'll come back at the end. so that is the end of day 12. The next video will be all about how to finish your hoop. So if you need help with that, come back for the next video and we can finish our hoop together.